Hi everyone, my name is Flora and today I want to talk about how you as a small organisation CEO can balance your two identities of being both the organisation and employer and an individual and employee of that organisation. And I think this is especially important at small organisations because at big organisations you tend to have a lot of people such as your senior leadership team, your board of directors, possibly even shareholders, all of whom have a small part of that identity as the organisation and employer as part of their role. At a small organisation, while you might have maybe a couple of managers and some trustees or a board of directors, day to day a lot of that identity of you as an organisation gets concentrated into you as the CEO. And with that comes a lot of power over decision making and what the organisation does both day to day and strategically. And when you have such a concentration of power, it's very easy to slip into the old adage, power tends to corrupt, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the central approach that I have is that you are the organisation first, individual second. And the reason behind that approach is the second central tenet of my belief is that no individual is indispensable to an organisation. It can be very easy when you're the CEO and in a small organisation you do a lot of things and a lot of things depend on you to get that worked up with the organisation can only be successful if you're there. And I think when you get that false belief, it can be very easy to think, well, I can do anything as long as it benefits me because it will benefit the organisation too. It's really important to recognise that the organisation exists separate to you, both for the organisation's benefit, but also for your individual benefit so you can have more of a work-life balance and set boundaries. And that's a topic for a future video that I'm going to do. But if you recognise that the organisation exists independently, it's got its own purpose, mission, aims, values even, and you are just the current leader of it, it means that your decision-making process must always have the responsibility as CEO to make sure that organisation survives and thrives regardless of who's leading it and who's in the team. So, bringing that together, that's why I would say that whenever you have an organisational decision, it's your responsibility as the CEO to make sure that you put on that organisation hat first, and then you consider the impact of those decisions on you as an individual second. So I'll share some examples of how this might work day to day. So for example, something like setting your salary bands or compensation policy. I'll do a longer video on this in the future of practically how you go about doing it, but in some of the things you might do are look at some market research, what other organisations of a similar size, in a similar sector, in a similar region are paying their employees, and use that to figure out what you need to do to stay competitive with that. You might think about what your organisation can afford long term and sustainably to make sure that you can keep a high level of employees on board without bankrupting the organisation, and accommodate for tax changes and for cost of living increases in living wage. So all of that you put together and you write a policy of these are the bands that we're able to pay, from the most junior member of staff all the way to the most senior as CEO. Once that organisation decision is made, you take off that organisation hat and you put on that individual hat and you look and see what the impact of that is on you. So does that level of compensation equate to the lifestyle that you want and the level of compensation you are expecting from a job that you're doing? If yes, fantastic, no need to do anything. If no, what you need to make sure you do is not then take off that individual hat and put on that organisation hat and then mess with that organisation decision to say, well, to keep this fantastic CEO, we need to double their salary and we'll take away from that individual and we'll find the money to make sure we can keep them. What you do is you keep that individual hat on and go, well, I know the CEO, because I am it, and I know the decision-making process behind it, so this is what the company can afford. So, in terms of me as an individual, can I adjust my expectations of my lifestyle because I get other benefits from this role and I want to keep it? Or is it just not enough for me, and therefore I need to look outside and look at other opportunities and other compensation to achieve the lifestyle that I want? So that remains an individual decision where you assess the impact of the organisation decision on you, but you continue to act and react as an individual. You don't put your organisation hat on and then start messing with things to have that individual benefit. Another way this might play out is in interactions with your team, is you have to remember that with any interaction with your team, you are always their organisation and their employer first. So if you're in an HR setting, you would need to make clear to that individual that you're coming in from that organisation perspective. And as you'll have seen from the video, I quite like actually physically miming and saying which identity I'm representing. And that firstly has the benefit of making them giggle, which then puts them at ease and the conversation goes much more smoothly. But it also makes it clear to them what they can expect from that conversation, and it makes them more appreciative that it will be more formal and probably follow a legal structure of questions that have to be asked to make sure that the organisation is compliant and supporting them in the best and most appropriate way possible. Once that bit is done, I might then switch in and put on my Flora's individual hat and have a bit more of an empathetic chat with them and support them more on that one-on-one individual level. As an aside here, I would also mention that because you have that employer organisation hat, it will always influence your relationship with your team members, and there will always be a power imbalance in those interactions because fundamentally you hold their livelihood in your hands. So you have to recognise that that will bias interactions. So your jokes, your feedback, your requests even, will have a lot more of weight to them than if another colleague had said that to that team member. So in sum, I would say whenever you're approaching an organisational decision, you are the organisation first, employee second. Again, as you'll see from the video, I really do like miming the two hats, and I find that that helps me be very intentional when I'm making a decision, be very mindful of what interests I am putting into that decision so that I don't slip and overlap those two identities, and make sure that I'm doing what's right for the organisation and then considering the impact of that on me as an individual. And I hope this will help you in balancing that. I know there's a lot of sort of press when a CEO goes too far on one extreme and they abuse their position, but I think it's really important to bear in mind that a lot of very conscientious CEOs go too far the opposite way, and they think any organisational decision that has an individual benefit must inherently be bad. And I've seen some fellow CEOs who, as a result, refuse to do things that would genuinely benefit the organisation, such as buying themselves a new laptop because their old laptop is falling apart, they can't do their work anymore, it's too slow, it can't interact with video teleconferencing, but they're so worried that buying themselves a new laptop would seem like they were abusing their position that they won't do it, and it harms them and it fundamentally harms the organisation. So hopefully having this approach where you put that organisation hat on first, you make the decision that's right for the organisation, makes you more comfortable that even if it does then have an ancillary individual benefit, that's okay because it was fundamentally the right thing to do for the organisation. So I hope you found that helpful. If you have, I'd love it if you clicked the like button because it would then help other people see it as well. I'd love to hear from you also on what you find is helpful in balancing those identities. Do you use the hat method? Do you use a different method? In any case, pop it in the comment below and I'd love to get into a discussion with you. As I've mentioned in the video, I'm planning to do quite a few more interrelated videos in future, So if you'd like to be notified anytime one of those comes out, then do hit the subscribe button and you'll get a little message whenever something's uploaded. But in any case, thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope to see you in a future one. Bye.